Well, hello, my petals, and welcome back to the Wedding Florist social podcast, which is the place to hang out if you want to be a great wedding florist. Really can't wait to dive into today's topic. It's quite a juicy and emotive one for florists and photographers alike, I think. But before we do that, remember to like the video and subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any further golden nuggets of information that we dish out in any future episodes. So as you can see, I've got a guest with me today. We've got Scott Carney here. Hi, Scott. So
Hey,
Scott Carney is a photographer in his own right. He's done many weddings in his time as a photographer. Scott also runs two podcasts of his own. We'll put the links for those in the description. One's called All Things Wedding, which is just general wedding related topics, lots of interesting sort of interviews and things like that in there. And another one's a photography specific one called Photographers Keeping It Real. So any photographers watching this one, it's definitely worthwhile tuning into that. Um, so Scott, us florists, it's no secret, but we love to see professional images of our weddings. But there's often this like disconnect, isn't there? Between the florist and the photographer, or more specifically, what the florist creates and what the photographer creates as the end result. Um, so this is what I really wanted to bring you in today for and have a chat, because I really wanted to kind of go through this so photographers and florists can watch it and understand the other one's point of view. So this isn't going to be some personal attack on you or for other photographers or anything like that. So don't worry. I just wanted to have a discussion surrounding this because you hear a lot of florists on florist Facebook groups and stuff like that getting quite sort of can get quite angry about it sometimes. I'll put all of this effort into a wedding and I got the photographer's images back and it's all wrong. It's all the colors are all funny, or there's no images of the flowers or anything like that. I really wanted to discuss surrounding that. Um, I mean, we can get good images of our own, of course, and I always advise my florists to do that, whether it be in your studio or your favorite spot next to a window at the venue or anything like that. But it's such a treat for us to see like the finished article and perhaps with the bride holding a bouquet or next to a beautiful window light, or the couple standing on a hill, or the centerpieces with the candles lit and all of that sort of thing. We don't get to see that because we generally arrive sort of earlier on. So I guess, I want to start with some of the research that we did. We've Scott and I have been on Facebook and we've seen, invited florists and photographers to kind of get their own personal points of view across. I guess the biggest thing, Scott, would be, we spend as florists a lot of time and effort kind of sourcing flowers that match the bridesmaids' dresses, or something that goes with the venue, or we have extensive conversations surrounding this topic with our clients and brides or grooms, or our clients. This is a big deal for them. That there's quite a lot of focus on this. So um as I guess I would love to just start with that and just sort of ask, get your sort of the photographer side of things. What happens from your side when you're editing the photographs or you're taking the images? How come we often get images back that where the flowers are completely different colors,
yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, firstly, thank you for having me on. Hello, everyone. Um, it's such an interesting topic because you think about people planning weddings, and yeah, how much effort goes into like. I know not for everyone. Some people might not care, but a lot of times the color scheme is at least thought about a little bit. Sometimes it's thought about a lot.
Mhm.
And like you say, whether that's down to like stationary colors, the flowers, the bridesmaid dresses, groom's outfits,
Mhm.
whatever the couple are deciding to wear, the sort of decor in the venue, all that kind of stuff. Like there's usually people are asking, okay, what's the color scheme? What, like you say, you don't just put some flowers together and go, here we go. Like
Mhm.
there's consultations there and everything like that. So the colors are important. And I think us as photographers, our style obviously is what it is, right? So there's, and I can go a little bit more in depth on style in a second, but we obviously shoot in a certain way, and then we edit in a certain way and deliver in a certain way. And yes, in general, the couples are booking for that, right? So they're
Mhm.
seeing our styles and they're going, right, yeah, that's what I want. I love the look of those images. But obviously, I don't know how much the couples will think, oh, well, I'm seeing that image. That looks like, oh, that's beautiful green dresses, but actually they were blue or vice versa, right? Or there's different shifts in. Actually, they didn't look like that in real life. That's how it's
Mhm.
edited. And I always say to photographers when I speak to them, or if I'm doing like portfolio reviews or anything like that, or if they're just asking for advice, I'm like, well, are you asking your couples, are you explaining your style well enough, whether that's on your website, whether that's in person? And, one of the big things that I do is when I speak to couples or, when I'm putting out copy or content and thinking about how I'm getting my messaging across, I'm thinking, right, do they understand that this is how I shoot, or that this, the say maybe the colors they pick are not going to look 100% true to life, but this is the reason I do it. And some people shoot, very warm, browny kind of tones. That's quite popular at the minute. And that's, kind of gives that look of a bit of romantic look and feel, right? And the
Mhm.
candle light, the kind of all that kind of stuff. So obviously that's great. And if they love the images, that's what they want. But they've got to then understand actually, yeah, the colors they're picking are not necessarily going to look how they look to the human eye, right? And or if they take a picture on their phone, it's going to look very different.
Mhm.
So whatever that style is. So yeah, a lot of my editing is very much, I try and be fairly true to color, right? I want things to look fairly vibrant and punchy. Again, the lighting's going to play a huge part in that.
Mhm.
And, my style is very much to show the couple. Like, I want people to look back on the album and be like, yes, that's how it felt. That's how it looked at the time. That's how it was. And for me, if I'm introducing tons of, different lights, if I'm, doing things that maybe aren't, editing in a certain way, that's not going to look to me like it did in real life. And I
Mhm.
feel like when I look at that picture, I'm gonna be like, well, it didn't look like that. This
Yeah.
dark can it's the example we give of like, oh, it's a candlelit ceremony room. I'm
Mhm.
blasting lights at it. It's just not going to look how it did at the time, which again is it's completely dependent on people's style and how they want to
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
things. But for me, I try and keep it fairly true to life. And that's the same for colors. So, I try and have a reference of like, right, what did the flowers look like? What were the dresses? What were the suits? What were, whatever colors we got? And do they look fairly true to life? It's not 100%, but I try and keep things, I say, fairly true to life, especially in print. And that's my main thing. I'm shooting for the print. I'm shooting for an album. For if someone prints something for the wall, it looks like I want it to look.
That's a whole other thing, isn't it? Because things can look different on even different screens. So it's hard for us all to match color. I mean, sometimes this difference can be quite subtle, and sometimes it's really obviously like completely different. I mean, I've had a blush and white wedding before, and the photos came back and the flowers looked almost orange and black. It was just so, I was like, that's not even my flowers. It was so different. Um, and I was kicking myself for not getting any of my own photos beforehand. That I completely went against the advice that I normally dish out to everyone. But some other times it's just perhaps the colours are the same but a little bit more muted or washed out, or stuff like that. So florists often get disappointed at that. But I guess the photographer's focus obviously isn't pleasing the florist, is it? So
yeah, I mean that's the thing. I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? And whether I'm whoever I'm working with, I try and think of it like we're all there to obviously give the couple the best experience, the best day, the best end product. And like say you have all these consultations and speak to couples to then get the flowers exactly as they want them, right? Whether that's colors or whatever tones and things like that. So they hopefully on the day, you deliver those flowers and they're like, wow, they're amazing, exactly what, better than we hoped or whatever. And, they love holding them and having them and all that kind of stuff. And when they get the photos back, hopefully it's the same. They're like, wow, we love the images and we love, everything you've done and stuff. So as long as those two things happen, I guess it's fine. Um,
Have
but
you
yeah,
ever, on
unless
that point, actually, Scott, have you ever had anyone or known of any other photographers to have someone come back and say, this looks, completely unrealistic, like the colors are all different? Have you ever had a complaint like that? Or
I haven't personally, and I haven't like I say I'm quite true to life anyway,
yeah,
so I don't think it's too much of an issue. But yeah, I've definitely heard of it. I don't know
yeah.
anyone personally who I've chatted to, but
Hmm.
definitely heard of it where people are a bit confused by it. But that's where it comes back to like say that first point I made of like, as long as the couples understand what they're getting, it's
Yeah.
fine because when you're looking at other people's photos, like say they wouldn't know that they weren't actually that shade or that color because they're always and thinking, oh, they're lovely photos, and that's it.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of couples understand like your style is to be a certain way and
Hmm.
what that effect will have on the look and the feel of the day. Then I think that's kind of the key thing. Like you say, as photographers, yes, we're shooting for the couples and we're delivering photos in our style that they've hopefully booked us for,
Hmm.
um, rather than thinking about florists. But I do try and think about suppliers a little bit as well. I know a lot of photographers do, and maybe it's selfishly because, like, well, we'd love for your other, suppliers to refer us.
Yeah.
So that's one part of it, right? It's not just about like, oh,
Hmm.
I just want them to be happy. Um, but yeah, part of it as well is like, yeah, you want to work with these people again. We're all in the same industry, and I do a lot of like networking and a lot of chatting to other
Yeah.
people, and I want suppliers to be happy, obviously, as well. But yeah, ultimately, it is about the couple, and as long as they're getting what they wanted or what they believe they were going to get, I guess it's
Yes.
fine.
Yeah.
It does seem odd to me sometimes when you say they put so much effort into a color scheme only for it to look completely different in the photos. But that's, if they're aware of that, I guess from the
Mhm.
start, it's okay.
And sometimes it's not just about color. It's perhaps that photographer's style isn't to sort of photograph the details or go around taking photographs of the centerpieces with the candles lit, or that bouquet shot, that everybody does where they hold it towards the camera like that. um you know I mean, as a florist, and I'm certainly not going to name names at all, but when people tell me during the final consultation, I'm usually going through the list of all their other suppliers so I can tag people on social media. And when they mention certain photographers, I go, oh my God, amazing. I'm going to get a gallery full of images here. And there's others where I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I get some good photographs myself before. And it's not because they're bad photographers. It's just because, well, like we're talking about here, and that their style is different. Maybe they shoot with or edit with a blue sort of tinge on it, or I know that photographer is more about posing people, or just not photographing the details. So yeah, I guess the key thing is really it's as florists, or I suppose any other supplier, we have no right to these images. And this is what I often tell florists when I see them getting angry on florist Facebook groups and things. These things are a nice to have, and a nice extra, an added bonus, if you like, rather than something you are entitled to. Um, I know we're always banging on your door, aren't we? You
Yes.
probably get sick of it.
It's not so much that, like, yeah, the only qualm I sometimes have with suppliers is like, as much as I talk to people as well, and we do it all the time, everyone knows like you're not editing photos in a day. So it's like, it's going to take, and obviously some people are quite quick. It might be 2 or 3 weeks. Some people it's
Mhm,
12 weeks. Like,
mhm,
the average probably though is somewhere in that 6 to 8-ish week range, especially in summer.
mhm.
Um, so you got to, I don't know, I think you just maybe just suppliers forget sometimes, or you just get, you're excited to see images,
Yeah,
which obviously is great. Like I'm excited to go through my images sometimes, but I've got a backlog of 10 weddings. It's kind of like, well, I haven't even sat down to look at them much yet. I might do a
yeah,
bit of a preview, but I haven't even thought about it yet. So yeah, especially in peak season, like everything's about the couples, about everything, about
mhm,
getting the day, getting it done, getting either, working on the backlog, and haven't always got time to pull out images for supplier. Then, if they're messaging like a week after the wedding, oh, have you got any photos? Like, I get it, excited and want to see them, but I haven't even thought about it yet. And obviously, the priority is going to be getting that gallery to the couple and making sure they love it. And
yeah,
I'm always happy to share like either full galleries or at least picking out images when it's like, venues and details and flowers and things like that,
mhm,
and then delivering those galleries to suppliers. So depending on what the couple want, really is where I am with that. I'm more than happy to share images, and I
yeah,
try to, providing like the couple have listed everything. So I ask again in my questionnaire, like same as you asked there, really. I send it out and I ask for like who's doing your wedding outfits, who's doing your flowers, who's doing your makeup,
mhm,
etc., etc. And a lot of times I'll fill that in, and then on my final meeting I might ask as well if they haven't put any, just to get an idea. So I like to see who I'm working with, but also I can then, like say, tag them. They hopefully share, so it's beneficial for everyone. So I
mhm.
love to do that. I love to know who's doing it, but sometimes they don't put it down. I might not see the florist in the morning or be aware of who it
Yeah,
is. Like I know certain venues I work at have, it's a lot of the times it's the same caterers, or it might be similar florists. So I might recognize their style a bit, but
mhm,
on the whole, if the couple haven't told me, I haven't seen them on the morning, I've got no idea who's done it. And in August, when I'm like, say, I got a backlog of 10 plus weddings and I'm shooting 3 that week,
yeah,
I'm not going to be able to trawl through and find who did the flowers, probably, and or something in particular. So it's not, sometimes people get, I've had messages where it's like, oh, it's a shame you didn't tag me, or it's like, I just
yeah.
literally, it wasn't any offense to you. I just literally didn't know
Pissed
who it
off.
was. Or they've said like, flowers by Joe or something. And I'm like, and that's all they've put. So I go on Instagram and I'll do my best to have a look and try and find the right person if I don't know the name of particularly know them by that brand.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they're operating under a different name, or it's, they've said it's the shop, or it's just my mate Joe's done them. They
Mm-hmm.
haven't actually written down like, oh, it's Joe so and so. So I do my best, and I know a lot of suppliers do as well. Some maybe don't care, but a lot of photographers will do their best to try and find people because I want to tag people. I want to be able to share images, right? I want to
Mm-hmm.
be able to help. But yeah, sometimes I just don't know. That's literally it. I have no clue
That's
who's done
it.
them, and it's not been horrible. If someone messages me and say, "Oh, I did the flowers for this," I'm like, "Oh, great, I'll add you to the list, and I'll edit the post." But
Yeah.
sometimes I just don't know, and yeah, getting messages like a week after a wedding for content is tricky, and I think it's great that you give advice of like actually get some of your own content just so you've got something as well because I appreciate like
Yeah.
that wedding for you, 10 weeks later you've done loads of weddings in between. It's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you want to get content out quickly like we all do, and that's great. And I've tended to a little bit more over the last couple of years try and think about when I'm doing my sort of pre kind of like my pre-gallery delivery, like sneak
Mm-hmm.
peek type
Yeah.
previews, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to put a little bit of some details in there as well sometimes. So the venue's got stuff to share and the florist and maybe some hair and makeup shots, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But obviously, yeah, my priority is very much to like show those images that represent my work the best, I guess, that hopefully the couple are going to really love and what they booked me for and why they paid me to shoot the wedding over someone else. And I'm more in that later camp you mentioned of like, I don't go massively detail heavy. Um, it really depends on the couple. Like I chat to them and I ask like how important, are I don't know, the flowers or the decor, what's happening with that. And if I've got couples where it's like, oh well, we're massively into flowers or we grew all our own flowers and stuff, then I'm going to take loads more shots maybe than if they're like, yeah, weren't that bothered, we just kind of picked up a bouquet from a shop. And most people are somewhere in between, right, where they've made a conscious effort, spent a good amount of money and thought about actually the flowers are important enough that we've put some effort and time and money into
Yeah.
them. So I'm going to get photos of them. But yeah, I'm not as detail heavy as some people because I'm much
Yeah.
more on the people and the moment side of things. But yeah, I'm conscious to try and get, photos of detail.
I love that you consider your couple and you have those conversations with your couples as well. Though I think that's a really good thing for photographers to do. Any photographers watching this, take note. I think because I think it can only benefit everyone. And I think we all have this mutual thing in common, which is our couples, right? And that's kind of who it's about, and that's who has to be pleased at the end of the day. That's the person who we both have contracts with. Um, the one of the points that came up during our florist's research was that, and I'm not saying it certainly not one I agree with, but there's some florists who sort of say, well, yeah, but you'd we make your images look good. We give you something nice to photograph. That sort of train of thought. Um, and I think, yeah, whenever that comes up on florist Facebook groups, I always try to educate them on the issue of copyright. That's like not how it works. And the issue of you could have three different photographers that photographing exactly the same thing, and they'd all take different images of it because they're creating something new out of what your creation might be in the photograph, right? But with a mixture of sort of shooting styles and editing and just personal creativity, each photographer would photograph some different. So I guess I'm mentioning it because I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it goes back to that like entitlement, doesn't it? I guess of like
Mm.
we should have, I don't know, we deserve images, professional images, or we deserve them to be a certain, to be true to the colors we've created and stuff, which I can see people's points on it. But yeah, it's tricky because, like you say, in a way, like you go to a lavish wedding, say, and there's like massive floral arches and the centerpieces are huge. The decorations, there's loads of decoration. It's a grand venue. Like yes, and details and stuff obviously is a lot easier to capture and make it look. I'm using air quotes, which I don't know if you can see, but it is Pinterest worthy, I guess, in that
Yes.
sense. Of like, oh, it looks amazing, and you see those like curved tables in Kew Gardens with like a gazillion flowers on, and it's obviously that is going to be easier to photograph than like when it's just a sparse kind of you know wedding venue, say, and there's not details not really important to a couple. They haven't really bothered with it, and that's fine. And
Mm-hmm.
for me and my style, like I say, it's all about the people, so I'm not overly bothered either way. And I'm like, if you're being yourself and you're having a mint time, I'm just going to capture that and I don't care about anything else. And details are important. I won't capture details. And if they're a massive part of it, then I'll capture a lot more details. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I kind of lean to that. But I think the entitlement thing people have to understand, like,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't have to send suppliers images. Suppliers don't have to, everything we do is for the couple, as we've said a million times. Like, really, florists and whoever it is should be thinking, right, I want to do the best job I can for the couple. So on the
Hmm.
day, everything looks amazing. They're really happy. They've got what they wanted, what they paid for. Their expectations are met. They're really happy. And that's all I really think about with the photos. As long as the couple are happy, and that's amazing. The side thing is great that, I'm grateful that a lot of suppliers I work with love me, and I try my best to do, great stuff for them. But
Hmm.
it's definitely in the back of my mind as opposed to what the couple want. I think anyone who's demanding, like, it does annoy me, I'll be honest, because, like, you say messaging straight away, like, have you got any images, or they don't look like, I don't know, like like they did in real life, or we're making the day easier for you to photograph, or it's our work you're photographing, we should be entitled to photos and stuff like that. Just isn't, like you say, technically correct at all,
Not
like
how it
legally, the
works.
copyright, yeah, how the couples are and stuff like that. Like, some photographers are way stricter than I am on it. Like, I I generally say to my couples, like, share the gallery with, friends, family, whatever. If there's any suppliers asked, just send them to me and I'll happy to share the gallery if they're happy. And
Mhm.
usually I'll just check the couple after delivery. I always wait. I mentioned there like that 6 to 8 weeks and stuff. Like, I might deliver to the couple, but I always wait to hear back from them to be like, we love them and we're happy before I send anything to suppliers.
Mhm.
So it might take a couple of, sometimes it's a week or 2 weeks. Sometimes I don't hear back from them for ages. And then I kind of share some and they're like, oh yeah, sorry, we love the images. We've just got, tied up with life. So, I don't want, because what I don't want is to share the images with everyone. All the suppliers start sharing them everywhere. And, like, touch wood, it's never happened. But if for some reason a couple came back and said, oh, there's an issue, or we don't like something, or I don't know, we want something re-editing, or we don't want these certain images sharing with anyone,
Mhm.
I don't want to have to go back to the suppliers and be like, actually, please, like, delete that, or please, all stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's just complicated. So I just want to know the couple love it. Then I'll happily share galleries if the couple are happy for me to, with all the suppliers. And, you know, hopefully that kind of works for everyone. But I think, yeah, the entitlement, the chasing of photographers, like, it's just going to make them wound up. And I know some photographers will then purposely just not send them, which I don't do.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit petty, but ultimately, like, I can see they just get annoyed and they're like, if you chase me, I'm just not gonna, we're even slower delivering them. So,
I mean,
but
middle
it's
of wedding
hard.
seasons, you've got a million plates to spin, and like you say, you've got the backlog to deal with. And I think people forget, florists and other suppliers forget that you guys are suppliers just like anybody else. You're just a person, quite often just one single person in the business, and you're just trying to run your business and keep everything going, and not to mention your personal life, like seeing to the kids, dropping them off at school, or whatever it might be. So I think, yeah, the sort of entitlement thing is I mean, we're not entitled to anything in life, really, really, but for photography wise, these are an added bonus, rather than something you are entitled to. um I do have, guys, florists listening, I do have a session on, if you want that, just pop a link, I'll pop the link in the description for you, and gives you tips on how to photograph your own work as well at weddings. Obviously, it's not going to be like the beautiful photographer's professional images, but in terms of getting your own shots and not demanding or relying on the professional photographer, you want something that you can share straight away and something that looks good on your portfolio. And I think as creative people as well, that it could be the best photographer on the planet, but sometimes you've created something like a bridal bouquet or whatever in a certain way, and the angle that it should be photographed at because you made the thing. So I've got a session. If you want that session, let me know. It's an hour-long session. Just gives you a few basic tips on getting your own shots. Um,
That's really useful, actually, because
yeah.
I think, like I say, I see often, like, florists deliver the photos, the flowers in the morning, and
Hmm.
obviously they're in, like, usually in, like, a box. All the bouquets are together. Obviously they're in the water, and they're like, right, where can we put these? There's never, like, a nice, oh, here's a beautifully lit space for you to put them. It's like, obviously you probably don't want them in direct sunlight, I guess, as well. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, chuck them in the bathroom, chuck them here, whatever, and it's surrounded by, there's just mess everywhere, and they're in a cardboard box, and it's not the great, I often see a florist will put it down and they obviously get a quick picture on their phone or whatever, and and go. and I can see why you wouldn't want to share that. It's not showing the flowers in the greatest light at all. And even on your phone, then where obviously you're not editing the images necessarily, you might edit them a bit, but that's fairly true to life. But it's you might be underneath a spotlight of like orangey incandescent indoor light and things like
Don't get
that.
me
So you're not.
started on venues that are full of those
Yeah, I mean,
lights.
venues are all like the lighting in venues, most of them,
Mhm.
it's terrible. So, like, even for us as photographers, like, it's awful. And then we're editing everything and obviously shooting
Mhm.
with it in mind, it's still like hard. So, yeah, on a to be dropping off flowers and getting a photo, it's not going to be perfect at all. So, yeah, if you've
No,
got the time, I guess, when you've put them together before you're boxing them up or whatever, it's great if you've got somewhere in your studio, you've got
absolutely.
somewhere at the venue you can just quickly, because, if I get chance, obviously, I'm usually I will just grab at least the bride's bouquet and just,
Mhm.
like I say, put it in a window or put it somewhere with a nice light, somewhere with a cleanish background, and try and get something nice so they've got that, like I said, I don't overly focus on details, but I'll do that. And I try to during groups, especially if it's like bride and bridesmaids, say, which obviously is the most common, or the
Mhm.
groomsmen with the buttonholes, when they're doing that group photo, I'll usually then go in, take a step in, get closer and try and get them to hold the flowers out and just do a flat, a bouquet sort of
Yeah.
shot so I've got them. But I don't stress too much about it. And if I try and make sure it looks good, obviously. But yeah, if they're holding it slightly wrong or whatever, like I don't really know. So I'm
Oh.
just kind of going off what they think. And like I say, I don't know anything about flowers, or like I say the way things are supposed to be. So I think obviously if you can capture it yourself, even just like say if you've got nice light, even on your phone, you can get a good photo. So it's not even
Yeah,
about professional
absolutely
cameras,
can.
like you can. So
Yeah, you might be the same as a photographer, but I always, at each venue, if it's one I've done before, I know like, right, I know that windowsill for the bridal bouquet, and I'll make a purposeful sort of trip to that windowsill, wherever it may be, to get that beautiful shot of the bouquet with the window light or whatever. But I've got areas that I can see in each venue. I'm like, yes, that's a good window, or that's a beautiful sort of there was a venue recently with a kind of eucalyptus colored wall, and it's like, yes, I'm taking some videos and photos next to that. um so I think, yeah, it's important to do that. um what would you say to the issue of photographers supplying images with what their watermarks on them?
yeah, like I mean, I don't do it at all. So my galleries, zero watermarks. Obviously, the couple get them without watermarks. They can do what they want with their images, essentially, in terms of downloading, sharing with friends and family. Like I say, I like to control sharing with suppliers, but just so I can have that relationship. But yeah, in general, like I don't mind about that, and I just don't do it. I think it looks bad. I just want
Mm.
my images to look as good as they can, and I don't really get about having a massive watermark. I know some people do like a bit of a border and have their sort of logo within the border, so it's not
Okay.
over the image itself, which I kind of get. And from a business point of view, it probably is good in a way of like, wherever your images are shared, if you've got your logo on there somewhere, it's
Mhm.
ideal. I mean, for me, I get a much more work and much more like in terms of referrals and that can I say that relationship from people who I share images with. They then share them, they credit me, and it all works out well. And then the few people who maybe don't credit me, usually just they forget or whatever, which is fine.
Mhm.
Most
Mhm.
people aren't like maliciously trying not to, credit people, right? But yeah, the few occasions that happens, I'm just either don't even know about it or I'm just not that going to lose sleep over it. I'm just not that bothered. Like I say, those relationships I've got, I know people mostly will tag me, and having that, relationship, I guess, is more important to me than the odd occasion when they just don't bother tagging me. And
It
a
is.
tag and someone being like, these are great images from there. Like, no one wants massive watermarks on images, do they? It just looks
Yeah.
terrible, in my opinion. Like, any supplier, any photographer, the only reason you do it is so people don't take the images, I guess, right? So if you're
Mhm.
sharing
Mhm.
images with suppliers, you're voluntarily doing that, or whether they're paying you or whatever the situation is. But you don't
Mhm.
need to then have like big watermarks. I just think it looks bad for everyone. So I personally don't really get it. But
I think that's a very important point about the relationships, but I mean, to the florists listening here, absolutely 100% always credit the photographers. Yeah, you would like yourself to be credited on their posts, so I pay them the same respect. This is their creation, this is their copyright. They've licensed those images to you effectively so that you can use them for your own marketing and your own social. So whether it be on your websites or your Instagram or Facebook, whatever it is, always credit them and tag them properly so that they're notified as well. Um, but with regards to the relationship between the different suppliers, I mean, yes, that's hugely important, isn't it? It's and if I didn't like the images that I saw online, then I would probably just not post them. I would certainly not say to a photographer, hang on a second, can you not just change this? Or I don't like the color of that. Or, can you send me some more? Blah, blah, blah. I just think that would be really rude, because that relationship is super important. You're going to get much more work from referrals from other suppliers. And if a photographer's speaking to their clients and they're getting married at a certain venue, it'll be like, oh, Vicky or whoever, I worked on that wedding with her recently and she did that amazing display, or that you should totally give her a shout. So sort of personal recommendations. And when you're as florists, when you're asking for images as well, um please don't come from a place of entitlement. It's about building the relationship with the photographer as well. So if I've not worked with a photographer before, I'd usually contact them in advance, just an Instagram DM or something, to say, hey, nice to meet you, we're working on so and so's wedding at the end of the month, hopefully see you on the day, so something along those lines. And or if I've met them before, I might sort of message them and say, oh, nice, it'll be nice to see you on Saturday again. What time you arrive, and it's building that relationship with the photographer, rather than just out of the blue a week later saying, "Hi, we worked together last week. Can I have some images, please?" It's a very different, and it's likely to rub the photographer up the wrong way somewhat. Um, so
Yeah, I have no problem with people messaging me like and say
yeah,
it's nice to put names to faces sometimes, and
exactly.
like I say, especially if it's like if I'm doing say bridal prep or whichever whoever I'm in with, and often I'm there and the florist will arrive to drop off flowers and stuff and seeing them. So if I'm like, oh hey, how are you? And they're like, hey, how are you? Maybe have a hug, and it's
Hmm.
like that. People seeing that relationship is already like putting people at ease, like, oh great, they've worked together or they know each
Yeah.
other, or like just everyone just being friendly just
Hmm.
seems a
Hmm.
lot nicer. And yeah, I'm all for like people messaging me before if they want to say, oh, we're working on a wedding together, can't wait or whatever. And at least I know who it is then as well. And like I say, again, I have no problem with people messaging me after I've posted something. If I haven't tagged them, I don't think there's an issue with messaging a photographer and saying
Hmm.
like, "Oh, I worked on that wedding. Is there any chance I could get a tag?" Or just because the chances are they just don't know. Like I say, I just didn't know,
Yeah,
and that's the only reason I haven't
you're
tagged
just
them. You
human.
know, like yeah, or I've forgotten or something. Like I
Yeah,
really don't mind people doing it. And obviously, at the end of the day, yeah, you don't have to, and some photographers might not respond or might not like it and whatever. But I think on the most part, people are happy. Like the more people I tag, the more people are probably going to see it and share it. And so, yeah,
yeah,
for me, like I don't mind people messaging and stuff, but like I say, just try and think. You never know what's going on in someone's life. Just try
mhm,
and be like, look, maybe they've not tagged me and they should have done or whatever, but just try and be a bit nice about things. You know, if people share work, like I don't message people and be all like, oh, you haven't tagged me. It's ridiculous. I shared my images with you and, you haven't even bothered to tag me and blah, blah, blah. Like, I just don't really, I don't get het up about it all. Don't really that bothered, but I might, if I see it and I happen to know, I might be
mm,
like, oh, might drop them a quick message, say, oh, glad that you loved it enough to share it. Like, it looks amazing. Do you think you could tag me in the future or whatever? And
yeah.
I don't think many people are going to be like, no, I'm not going to or whatever. But you know,
You'd be very entitled to
so
do so as well. It is your creation at the end of the day. And you've given the florist those images on the basis of like, okay, but credit me because that's where you get your business from. And the amount of times I've had a booking because I've been tagged on somebody else's post, or somebody has found the photographer because of something that I posted, or you know it's common courtesy, isn't it? But obviously, like you say, the photographers are only human, so they're trying to juggle a million things at once.
yeah, I
So
try because, like I say, I've now, well, like I say, I asked the couple anyway, and then obviously on the day, if like they haven't put down like who the band is or whatever, when they turn up, I see them, I'm like, right, I'll add them, and I have a note on my phone with the couple's name, the date, and then a list of the suppliers. So I try and add to that in the day if I haven't got the supplier name already, and so on, and so I can just search my phone and copy and paste that in for Instagram. So I do that, and generally what I try and do now as well is then when I'm sharing the gallery, say the venue, which is usually the first person I'll kind of share it with
mhm,
or whichever supplier it is, I send it, and in the message I say like, oh, here's a gallery from so and so's wedding. Thanks again for your help on the day or whatever, or the flowers looked amazing or the makeup looked amazing or whatever. And then I'll copy and paste that note in just to be like, if you didn't know, here's the suppliers. Like obviously I'll tag everyone when I post it. If you want to, then here's a list of suppliers. So
mhm,
saving it because then a lot of venues don't bother. like they'll might tag the photographer, they never tag anyone else half the time.
Mhm.
But I'm at least trying to at least take that step away from everyone and be like, well, you can't say you don't know who did it, or you can just copy and paste. There's really no excuse.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
curated everyone for you. So I even try and go
absolutely.
to that step now of like just trying to be nice for everyone. And yeah, we
Hmm.
all just want, to be share, images and like saying just to have that content. But like I say, I think taking your own is a great step. And even in your portfolio, because if you go in your portfolio, like say you'll have, I don't know, say you've got 10 weddings that month or whatever, you've got 10 different photographers, they're all going to have slightly different editing
Well, that's
styles.
it.
So even if they're true to life, it's still going to look on a grid or on a
Mhm.
portfolio on your website, it's still going to look quite different. And it obviously touches on one of the things of one of the points that I know that florists make of like, you know, the, I lost my train of thought there. What
It's fine. Yeah, go
I'm
for
going to
it.
say, the, yeah, like I say, everything not looking cohesive, I guess. And you say you've got all these different editing styles, you want that to look cohesive. If you're taking the photo of that, and then you've got, say you might have a couple who go on your website and be like, oh, we love that bouquet or that picture, can you do
Mhm.
that? And you're like, well, I can do that same bouquet obviously, but actually it'll look different to that because that
Yeah.
photographer shoots it in that way. So it's,
Mhm.
if you've got all the images where you're taking them at similar background, similar light, similar settings,
Yeah,
whatever, that at least that's fairly true to how you want it to be seen. You can edit it your
absolutely.
own way or whatever. So when a couple says, oh, we looked on your website and we love that look, or if you're sending a lookbook out type thing, they're seeing images that obviously you can recreate rather than you having to think, well, I can recreate it, but it's not going to look how you want and so
Yeah.
on. So I guess,
We
you
do
know,
get that sometimes. This is one of the bugbears of some florists. We get people coming in on consultations and saying, "This is the bouquet that I want, Vicky. I love this one. I've seen it." And it's like, well, okay, but it's so heavily edited, or it's edited in a certain way that actually you can't get roses that color, or it's just the way they've shot it, or the light, or something like that. And we have to. It's our job, I think, to do a bit of educating in that respect, and just say, hey, like set expectations, and actually that particular rose, I can tell which one it is, and it's actually more of a lilac-y color, but it looks
mhm.
browny on that picture. Um, so yeah, it's all about education, I think. Um, I wanted to honestly, I could talk about this all day. It's such a big subject, but I wanted to sort of ask you, finally, like as a final point before we end this. So let's one of the points that came up when I was doing a bit of research for this podcast, was that some photographers were sort of saying, around about the subject of them perhaps doing a special edit for the florist, or or even charging the florist for certain images. So I mean, how would we go, would that be like really rude, if a florist sort of looked at, say they all had a blue tinge to them, or they were really dark or something like that, would that be a rude thing to ask a photographer to say, hey, like, I'm happy to pay, but could you do a different sort of edit on these for me? How would that go down?
Really tricky, isn't it? Because
Mm,
so for me, I wouldn't overly mind really. The only thing I would say is if I was like, if it's going to look completely different to how I might, edit and do it,
mm,
maybe I wouldn't want tagging, say, I wouldn't want, or I might say to them like, don't use it on social, don't tag me, but if you want it for your website or something, like it's kind
mm,
of tricky, isn't it? Because I generally don't, even when couples come back, if they were like for some reason like, oh, don't actually like, the way you've edited these or something, like I'd re-edit for couples, but yeah, it's kind of tricky because I edit the way I edit. That's just how I
yeah,
do it. It's
your
kind of
style.
hard to. It's actually quite hard to edit in a
Mm,
completely different style because I don't really know. I haven't shot for that.
mhm,
People who are
mhm.
very light and airy, shoot for that and edit for that, and it'd be very hard for me to turn my images into that in a
Yeah.
way. Just slapping a different preset on doesn't really work.
I guess
So yeah,
each photographer would be different in that respect, and I certainly wouldn't want to ask, because it would be a bit of a sort of insult to your creation, I would feel, but some photographers wouldn't really mind so much.
yeah, I would. I think if I got a message from a florist and said, "Look, we worked on this wedding together. I love, I don't know, they maybe gave me a specific image or so. I say, look, I love these images. I really want them for like my portfolio or to have a bit of a real wedding on my website or whatever. But my style is a little bit more, true to color or a bit more
Mm.
vibrant or whatever. Like, and obviously, I want my website to be fairly cohesive,
Hmm.
like we all do as photographers, right? Is there any chance that I could get these four images, say, but edited slightly more? I don't know, to try and give an example, or maybe
Yeah.
just say like a bit more true to life. If that is possible, like obviously, could you let me know a rough time frame and a price? Say, I'm happy to pay for
Yeah.
the time. Or I don't think that's rude to ask. And the worst case,
Yeah.
photographer will be like, I'm sorry, I won't edit in a different, a style that's different to mine, I'm afraid.
Hmm.
Or they might be like, yeah, sure, this, that, and if it was like 4 images or something, like I probably would just do it for a florist, to be perfectly honest, especially if I've got that relationship anyway, or
Hmm.
just to be nice. Like, but yeah, it's fair enough to charge, I guess, as well, if it's going to take you an hour or so to edit, say, a few images or a couple of hours, depending on how many there are.
Hmm.
I don't think anyone would go too crazy on charging for it. I think it'd just be a nominal fee or something. But I don't think it's rude to ask. I think it's fine to ask. Just
Yeah.
be prepared that you might, obviously, they might not do that because they might be like, well, look, this is the way I do things. But I also think
It's
like
about how
we
you
as
ask as well, isn't it?
yeah, that's it. And we as photographers, like I obviously shoot work I don't show, not because I don't love it or I don't like it. I just don't, I have very few couples portraits on my website, for example, which is very rare for a photographer. Obviously, I'm way more about the moments, and that's what I show because that's what I want people to book me for. And not that I don't shoot portraits, I do. Not that I don't shoot, excuse me, like the table decorations or the flowers or other things. 'Cause I do shoot all that, and I'll show couples when we talk in consultations, like here's a full gallery, and this is what you can expect from me. This is the way I do like my group photos or the formal parts or the details. And I talk through that, like I mentioned at the beginning, to explain to them this is what you're going to get and so on. So they know and their expectations are there, but I'm just generally not showing it a lot on my website because that's not what I want people to book me for. I want, I'm commanding a price that I command because of the moments that I'm getting and the way I work with my couples to get those moments. That's why people book me for that. They
Hmm.
don't book me for my couples portraits really. They're fine. I can do them and I enjoy them to a point and they're nice. But yeah, if people want these dramatic couples portraits, they're probably going to book someone else. So, I'm
Yeah.
not showing that stuff. So, and everything I want is to show what I want. So it's fair enough, I think, for florists to be like, well, we want our website to represent our style of whatever. You might get a couple come to you and ask for something you don't typically do that much. It's fine. You might be like, sure, I'll do it, but you might not show it on your website because you want that cohesive, like say that look that you're known for, whatever it is, like cottage gardeny style or whatever. I don't know anything about
Hmm.
flowers, but you
Hmm.
know what I mean, something like a certain style. So I don't think it's wrong to be like, look, I love this image. This, I don't know, this couple with they've got a bouquet, and that image is fantastic. I think that'd look great on my website. But is there any chance of getting it tweaked a bit?
Hmm.
And I don't think it's rude to ask, but I think it's nice to offer to at least pay for the time or at least open up that discussion and see. And some people
Yeah.
I think will be open to it, some might not. But I don't think it's rude to ask. I think it's just like I say, it's just that if expectation of like, I love these, can you re-edit them and send me them, and that's it, kind of thing. I don't think
Mhm.
you'd be met with a very good response. But
And in terms
yeah.
of like paying photographers for the images, so in like rather than getting a gallery for free, like a lot of photographers kindly give us, some photographers might say, and this is I think more sort of prominent in the US than over here, but some photographers might say, sure, it's 25 quid an image though,
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts surrounding that?
I mean, I don't do it. Um, I've made my money on the wedding, and if for me, I like to see things as like how much time does it take, how much effort, what's the
Hmm.
worth for me in that, like say that relationship, and for me,
Hmm.
the value I'm going to get from a relationship with other suppliers, them tagging me and things like that down the line relationships is more valuable than a 20 quid sale, 25 quid for one image or whatever. That's my personal opinion.
Hmm.
And I've already got the gallery there. It takes me like a minute to like send the link.
Hmm.
Worst case, I might pull the flower images. If the couple say I don't want, all the pictures, obviously, of like us hugging our kids or
Yeah.
whatever, fair enough, right? So I might just pull the flower ones or the table decorations or whatever out. Doesn't take me very long. The gallery's already online. I can select a few images, create a new gallery from it, and send it. Like it doesn't take a lot of time. So for me, the relationship isn't worth me charging for that. But yeah, I guess if you're getting a lot of it, or it is taking a lot of time for whatever reason, like maybe people don't have the same gallery
Yeah.
set up, or if you've got to go through hard drives, it's an older wedding, or you just don't have the time or something, then maybe it's fair to say, well, it's taking me time, so I'm going to charge for it, which I guess is
Yeah.
fair as well. So
You'd
I
be
would
very right
say,
to do so, I think.
yeah, it's just not very common practice. So I think
Yeah.
it's a surprise. I think if the image is really worthwhile for you, so it might be like, say, like this wedding is very much like 100% what I want for my
Mhm.
portfolio, the style of flowers, the type of couple, it's my ideal couple. They booked the package of flowers that I really want. We've worked on this massive flower arch, all these decorations. Like,
Mhm.
this is something we really want images for. And the photographer might be hesitant for whatever reason. Like, maybe then it is worth you to say, well, look, we can pay for the images, but can we have a few or whatever? Like, I guess
Yeah.
it's a fair thing to ask, and it's fair for the photographer to request it. I just like I say, I don't. It's not that common in the UK. I wouldn't say, to
No.
be fair. I'd be quite surprised if
Mhm.
photographers are saying, well, I'm going to charge for it, but it can be a thing. I guess it's depends on,
Yeah,
like, say, how
quite
important those
within your
images are
rights
for you.
though.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's taking you time. I guess everyone should be
Yes,
paid for the
that's
time.
it.
And, again, like, obviously we all do styled shoots very often. I generally will not get paid for it. Obviously I go and take
Yeah,
images at them,
likewise.
and
Yeah.
most of the suppliers aren't paid generally, maybe the models, but a lot of times it's, everyone's collaborating basically for free to get content for each other.
Mm-hmm.
That is an exception for me with editing. Like, that I will do differently if people want it. And I generally like to chat to suppliers before styled shoots,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because and just get an idea of what do they want, like what they're supplying, what they want from that, especially if they're not there on the day. Like, often the florist will be there because they'll deliver the flowers, but if they're not, then I want to understand that. And if you want something edited differently, I'll do it on that for things like that, because the
Yeah.
whole point of that shoot really is for everyone to get content they can
That's
use.
it. Yeah.
So if you're not going to use the content because it's edited weirdly or in a way you don't want, it's pointless to you, and that's a bit of a shame. So that's different to a real wedding. But yeah, I wouldn't be. I think the key takeaway for me is like communication. Just
Yeah.
people, especially for me, or just any photographer, just ask them. Worst case, they just won't reply, or they'll say no. But there's no harm in asking. If they ask to charge, just understand, like, it's their time. They're entitled to
Mhm.
charge for it. I think it's a little bit harsh personally if it's just to ask for a few photos, but it's within the right. And also,
It's sorry, go on. Huh?
no, I was just going to say my final thing on that is that sometimes couples just don't want their gallery sharing.
Yeah.
And, obviously an image of the bouquet on its own isn't really an issue, but I generally will have, like, if the couple say no sharing,
Mm-hmm.
or there's an NDA or something even stricter than that, like, I just won't share them. That's that. And, I'm not going to go back to the couple and say, oh, the florist wants one. There's no people in it. Can I share this one? And it's just a lot of backwards and forwards and time.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels a bit like they've asked for no sharing. I'm just not going to share any. And that has
Absolutely.
to be obviously, like, respected by all suppliers. So that's,
100%. Yeah.
obviously
Uh,
your own images, do what you want, but yeah, that I
yeah.
wouldn't share on that
Of
occasion,
course. Of
obviously. So
course. I think in terms of paying for images or you doing those, you say you do that for free, for example. It's akin to like a photographer asking us for, like, oh, have you just got a few spare flowers so we can do a nice flat lay photograph or something like that. Like, for florists could have the point of view of, well, sure, yeah, that's 50 quid, please, or they could just say, sure, there you go. I'm bound to have some spares on the day, and they get nice photographs from it as well. So yeah, there's I think the key thing, just to sort of, wrap up, is that, I think your point about the relationships being more important, and than the actual the images, or that we've got to, like, work together. The couple is our focus, and the relationship between other suppliers is super important as well. So guys, never come from a place of entitlement. You are not 100% not entitled to any professional images from the wedding at all. They are a nice to have. They're a bonus, an added extra, and always get your own photographs too. So, yeah, you guys, thanks so much for listening. I think we could talk about this all day. But yeah, thanks so much for listening, and I hope you find that useful. All the links are in the description, sorry. And any links to Scott's podcast, any links to my website, and my sort of course on that, my session rather, on that, the subject of photographing your own work. Everything is all in the description. So thanks so much for listening, and tune in. Remember to subscribe, and so you're not missing out on any future episodes. And just once again, thank you so much, Scott, for coming in and enlightening us as to the point of view of the other side.
yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Be nice to your suppliers. And yeah, everyone
Absolutely, that's the
enjoy
key.
you. Yeah, exactly.
All
Thank
right,
you.
take care, guys, and flower on.